All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We take a flag salute. Anyone interested in leading us? All right. Okay, we'll take roll call at this time.
Commissioner Sengha,
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Here.
Commissioner Roostal,
Here.
Commissioner Tuituvuki,
Present.
Commissioner Milas.
Okay, are there any actions on requests for continuous or withdrawals?
Nope, we've had no requests.
Okay. So we'll go on to public comment. The public is welcome to address the commission on items of interest to the public but not listed on the agenda. Comments to the commission are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Is there anybody who would like to address the commission at this time for items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the first item of the night. And I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to introduce Jacob Pahuli. He's an assistant planner. He's been with the department for about 7 months, and this is his first planning commission presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This project includes 2 applications, a variance and a major subdivision. The variance requests to reduce the minimum parcel size and lot width in the AG 40 General Agricultural 40-acre minimum zone. A major subdivision has been applied for concurrently to subdivide 2 existing legal parcels into 6 parcels and a designated remainder. The 14.77 acre project site has a general plan designation of general agriculture and zoning of general agriculture 40 acre minimum. The project site is located on the east side of North Trethaway Road, 660 feet north of Victor Road, southwest of the urban community of Lockford. This is the site plan and tentative map submitted by the applicant showing the proposed major subdivision with reduced parcel sizes and lot widths. The parcels will be served by private water, stormwater, and sewage systems. A new access easement is included along the southern property line to provide legal access to all resulting parcels. This easement will be recorded and constructed in compliance with county standards, ensuring continued access substantially equivalent to a public right-of-way. In 1998, the Development Service Division approved a certificate of compliance to recognize the eastern half of the subject property as a separate legal parcel containing approximately 7.5 acres. As a result, the subject property is comprised of 2 legal parcels totaling 14.77 acres. The applicant submitted a variance application to reduce the minimum lot size from 40 acres to a minimum of 2 acres. The applicant is also requesting to reduce the parcel widths from the required 330 feet to 315, 321, and 264 feet. These reductions are proposed to facilitate a major subdivision into 6 parcels and a designated remainder. The Planning Department received 4 letters of opposition, those being from the San Joaquin Farm Bureau Federation, the Sierra Club, and 2 neighboring property owners with concerns about land use compatibility, consistency with planning documents, groundwater, stormwater, drainage, septic systems, and access roads. Both the Farm Bureau and the Sierra Club expressed concerns over potential loss of agricultural land, noting that the parcel is small and substandard for the AG 40 zone. Currently, the site is not suitable for agricultural operations and is not in active production. 70% of the surrounding parcels within a quarter mile are 2 acres or less, so creating additional substandard parcels would not be incompatible with surrounding land uses. The Sierra Club also questioned whether the project is consistent with state law, the general plan, and the development title. The department is recommending approval based on the ability to make the required findings in the affirmative as required by both the development title and California's planning and zoning laws. The requested variance only addresses parcel size and width and does not introduce any unpermitted land uses. As already permitted in the AG 40 zone, each proposed lot may be developed by right with one single-family residence, one accessory dwelling unit, and one junior accessory dwelling unit. The Farm Bureau raised concerns about the elevated nitrate levels in the groundwater, but the Environmental Health Department found no evidence supporting this claim. A soil suitability and nitrate loading study must be approved by the Environmental Health Department prior to the approval of the parcel map as included in the conditions of approval. Similarly, concerns regarding stormwater retention will be addressed by the Department of Public Works in the conditions of approval, which requires each parcel's stormwater to be retained on site. One of the neighboring property owners also raised questions about access road requirements. Public Works is requiring a minimum 25-foot private access and utility easement for parcels 1 through 6 before any non-agricultural building permits are issued, along with a record document to ensure funding and maintenance of the roadway improvements. Finally, an initial study dated July 25th, 2025, concluded that potential project impacts can be reduced to less than significant levels with mitigation measures. If the project is approved, the Community Development Department will file a mitigated negative declaration, and the project will be subject to mitigation monitoring and reporting program as a condition of approval. To approve the variance, several findings must be made in the affirmative regarding special circumstances, that the project will not be detrimental, that the variance would not grant any special privileges, and that the variance does not authorize a use that is not already permitted on the property. Additionally, several findings must be made in the affirmative to approve the major subdivision. Staff recommends that all required findings can be made in the affirmative as detailed in the staff report. This picture was taken from the west side of North Tretheway Road, looking east towards the subject property. The white fenced-in area is where the designated remainder will be, and to the right is the proposed access easement. This picture is taken from the center of the parcel along the southern property line, looking towards North Tretheway Road and the location of the proposed access road. It is recommended that the Planning Commission approve the project with the recommendations shown on this slide and included in the staff report. Thank you, and this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Any question?
Chairman?
Yes.
We also have an additional edit to one of the conditions of approval, just correcting a tentative map date that we wanted to include in the recommendation for approval. It's in the notes for this evening.
Oops. Okay, so at this time, just so everybody knows what the procedures are, the applicant will have a chance to give us their oral arguments, and then the opposition will have a chance to speak, and we'll bring it back for rebuttal, and then we'll bring it back to the commission. But before I turn it over to the applicant, I'll ask again, does anybody on the commission have any questions for staff at this time? Okay. The applicant can get forward and speak to the commission.
Hi there. My name is Patrick Estes. I'm the owner of the property and the applicant. I'd like to first thank the commission for spending time reviewing this.
Could you give us, you gave us your name, could you give us your address as well?
Oh, yeah, 17400 North Tretheway Road, Lockford, California, 95237.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I've brought Josh, the engineer, who's helped me on this project here tonight to answer any questions, as well as myself. We think it's a project that's gonna obviously benefit our county and state that has issues with housing. So first and foremost, we believe this helps achieve that. We also think that the project basically coincides with the neighboring surroundings, as you can see by the map. We think there's going to be very little impact as far as environmentally speaking. We've got, it's a tough time farming 10 acres anymore, especially in an area that's surrounded by, I've got Cal Drive, and I think some of those lots are 1/10 of an acre. So I've got a pretty densely populated residential road that butts up and dead ends into my property, and I've had issues with people complaining about dust. It's organic, but still they don't like me putting materials down and whatnot. So I think I thought it was best to, possibly turn these into lots that people can build homes and live in. Yeah, pretty straightforward project, I think. If anybody has any questions, be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability, or Josh.
Okay. Anybody got any questions, commissioners?
I had a question.
Yes.
You mentioned the housing element, that the county and the state needs the houses. What kind of square footage of the houses and what kind of lots are you providing with this? I know that, but I'm just asking you to have it on the record.
Well, I have no idea as far as square footage of what kind of dwelling might go on these. I have no plans on building them myself. I have plans on potentially eventually selling them to
developer?
families that would like to buy them and build a dwelling. The properties are going to be 2-acre parcels apiece.
Okay, so if it's 2 acres a parcel and we are looking at 10, so that's about 20 acres or something around that area. Respectfully, the housing element that we're looking at, they're looking at more at affordable housing and people who can afford homes. So I don't, sorry to be so blunt, but I don't think this is going to help the housing element that the state and the county needs, because these are going to be custom homes and 2-acre lots, and those people are not getting into the housing element issue. What people are looking is into high-density or medium-density homes. So obviously, this project is asking for every lot to have their own well. There was a letter being submitted in opposition which explains that, the wells have been dug deeper because of the water going down. I understand what the county is saying or the staff is saying about the report. Have you considered that how much pressure is being put on the resources for every dwelling having a private well?
As far as water usage,
Yes.
I do. 1/2 acre foot per dwelling for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 4-person house in California. Row crops take 4 to 8 feet of acre feet per acre, which makes that a pull of 8 to 16 for these 2-acre parcels. Almonds are around 8 per acre, 8 to 10, depending on where they're planted. So I'm going to essentially save the water aquifer from experiencing a 20-time multiplier with agriculture.
Okay. All right, just needed to hear the clarification. Thank you.
Yeah. And then also, I do have to say there are a lot of folks out in my area, in fact, almost everybody that surrounds me, they've got an ADU there, their family's living there, someone else is renting another place. So it's my hope that someone also does that if they buy these properties and build a house on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Not at this time. Would the engineer like to come speak?
Would you like to say anything, Josh? Or?
I'm just here to answer questions.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents of this item? Now would be the time to come speak. Is there anybody on the lines tonight?
There's one person.
To see if they're a proponent or an opponent. All right, so at this time, those who are opponents of this project may come forward and speak at this time. Remember, we need your name and your address when you're speaking to the commission. Would anybody like to speak against this project?
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Caitlin Sullenberger at 17338 Cal Drive in Lockford, California. I've come to tell you that when my family and my husband and I chose to buy this home, our first home, it was because of this farmland. We wanted a safe, beautiful place to raise our children with open space and rural beauty that this farmland provides. It's not just an empty field to us. It's the reason we invested our life savings in this home. But already we're experiencing the strand development. Our well has already been contaminated by things. We know firsthand what it's like not to have safe, clean drinking water. That having additional homes, additional wells, additional septic systems just increases the risk of it happening again, not just to my family, to all of the families that surround us. And there's also the issue of drainage and flooding, that on that farmland on this property, there is a ditch dug specifically to prevent the, the flooding of my property and my neighbor's property, that by having this land developed, paved over, altered, all of that is lost, that farmland that is soaking up the water and preventing the flooding, so we face flooding in our yards and our homes. And there's just the emotional toll. We moved here for the views, the quiet, the promise of being able to raise our family in a rural environment. Replacing the farmland with rooftops and pavement would destroy the very character of the place we call home. Once that farmland is gone, it's never coming back. It's not just about one development, it's about protecting the health, safety, and quality of the life of families who are already there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to come and speak as an opponent of this project? Person online?
There's a person online, and she is asking, what's the traffic mitigation and impact?
She wants to know about that.
She's not talking, she's typing.
Okay, and what was it again?
She wants to know what the traffic mitigation and impact is going to be.
Okay. That would be a question that the applicant can answer, or we'll get staff to answer it. So at this time, you can come back and rebuttal to the folks who have spoken against it. Yeah, it's your time now.
As far as traffic's concerned, I have no immediate plans to sell the lots. So I think in the near future, there's going to be absolutely zero impact. I may even argue that there's going to be less traffic because we're going to move all our farming equipment out of there. And I will not have multiple people daily and nightly coming in and out of that property to either disc weeds, pull furrows. And again, it's a designated remainder in 6 lots. So I'm no expert on traffic, but I'd have to conjecture to say I think the impact would be pretty minimal, especially considering the traffic that goes down Trethway over to Locke for the industrial area that's already there. So I think it'd be pretty minimal. And as far as Caitlin, you're my neighbor. I'm going to meet you someday. Yeah. We're going to work with you. Okay. I promise. Okay. We'll maintain the sanctity of our neighborhood. All right.
Okay.
The drainage
Yeah.
deal. One of the conditions of developing is placing drainage water retention basins on each parcel if someone were to ever pull a permit to build.
Yeah, I think it says that in here.
It's Lodi sandy loam too. It's the most drainability of any soil in the county. I think that also helps.
So I have a question. You
Yes, sir.
are farming the land at this time?
Organically, yeah.
And what are you growing?
And I've stopped. We've let it lay fallow the last 2-3 years because of
Okay.
the neighboring pressures of people like literally running out of their houses, and,
Yeah.
because of dust but
Do you-
organic row crops.
And do you have a well on the property?
Yes, sir.
Have you found that the surrounding homes have impacted your water tables?
No, in fact, my well guy told me that it's come up as of late. It was down to 130 down the, during the drought. We're back up to 105 water table. I also have to say that, you know, a domestic well would typically, in that area, you would typically put in 150 to 190 foot well. We're not talking 350 foot wells that are gonna, you know, go deep into an aquifer anyhow. But yeah, no, we haven't had any issues that I've seen. And I've drank that water my whole life. I don't think I have any problems, knock on wood, but I haven't had any nitrate. And we do water tests multiple times throughout the year for food safety. 0 traces of E. coli, and almost 0 traces of nitrates, well below any legal levels for certain for drinking.
Opposition from Mr. Zamparita? Priya? I can't pronounce, I'm sorry if I said it, but pardon, I screwed that name up. He wrote, and I don't know if you have any information about it, it says 5 homes behind these parcels, including mine, have each had to lower our well pumps by about 40 feet in recent years. So you have not had to do that since you've had this property, or?
No, sir, no. And that well was originally drilled, the original well, it's on the property that my family put there in the early 1900s, was upgraded in 1979 when my grandfather put in their domestic well at 180 feet, and that's where it's sat since 1979.
Okay. So you see where I'm going. I mean, one of the biggest concerns is that if we allow this to go forward, that the more homes will come on and they'll take more water out. But what I'm hearing is that that's not necessarily true. Is that correct?
Absolutely true, and I have to agree with you 110% on that, and it's not because I'm in any way biased, it's simple math. Acre feet for a very low usage row crop like winter squash needs 4 to 6, as I had said, 4 to 6, or depending on the year, acre feet of water per year. Whereas we're at about half an acre foot to 1 acre foot per California household. So it's going to be substantially less water usage, contrary to belief. And I get it, 100%. I mean, water is precious, especially in this state. That's the first thing that everybody freaks out about. I don't blame them, actually. But the facts just are that it'd be more advantageous to put a single-family dwelling there as opposed to farming it, water-wise.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question of the proponent? How long have you been farming there?
Let's see, since 2000 and, make sure I get this right, I think 06.
6. Wow, so it's been a long time. Thank you so much, and I'm glad that you brought up the usage of water through farming versus residential. I too love farmland, and I moved out here because I wanted to see it everywhere I went.
sure.
I'm in Lathrop, and believe me, I don't see that much anymore. But I understand, I also have a lot of friends in the farming, and it's a brutal job, and I commend you for the time you did it, and I understand that you're entitled to the same benefits as every other farmer who has said, you know, this is my time to do something else. And I saw the same thing with the water. There was a lot of comments in terms of the water. But I mean, the one thing about farming is if you drive by at a certain time of the day and you see the amount of water that is being put into the crops, you realize it's tremendous. I still like the crops. I still want the crops. But I understand that it's not an issue that should impact the use of water that dramatically. And on the other hand, the water tables will probably go up. Thank you so much,
agree.
sir.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes.
Sure.
Question. I know you didn't mention a timeline, but do you have a timeline when you would think you would start developing? I know you want a variance to get that,
Yeah.
so that you can, is there something in, that you believe in, or you
I
just
lit-
want the variance for right
I
now?
literally have no idea. You know, I've got, my folks are retiring and getting older. You know, all, this is all down the road stuff. I've got a neighbor at the back that might want to build something and move in some of their family. Other than that, that's the extent of any somewhat-ish plans at the time. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll bring it back here for discussion.
I'm good, but there was 6 parts to this. Does the motion have to have all 6 parts? Oh, you mean the recommendation? I'm trying to get a motion that is more. If you can word it for me, I'll.
Through the chair, maybe our council wants to answer. We were both
Okay,
going.
there you go.
Okay, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So what we typically will do when we have a lot of different motions is we will reference the recommendations in the staff report and the recommendations as presented by staff. But in this case, we'd also want to point out the modification of, it's just a map date, just for clarity, as pointed out by Deputy Director King. So I would recommend, if you want to support this, that's how you do it.
Exactly how you said it, and I will make a motion for it.
That works for me if that works for council.
Yeah, how you can phrase it is recommend adopting the findings set forth in the staff report as, I believe it's exhibit or attachment E, with an amendment to one of the conditions of approval. And staff, if we can be very specific about what that amendment is and which condition, maybe we can reference it by the number or letter. If we look at the conditions of approval in F, attachment F,
It's an amendment to condition 1A.
1A, and what is the amendment?
It's amending the tentative map date. It did say March. It's supposed to be May 22nd, 2024. It was just an incorrect date.
And this motion is going to be for both the variance and the major subdivision at the same time, correct?
That's correct.
So, let's see.
And if I don't have to say exactly what you said, I support that and I make the motion, because I won't remember half of it.
That's,
Okay, we have a question.
Yeah, question. Question before you make the motion. I just want some clarification. So, have we, I don't know if somebody can answer this, have we approved a similar variance for these type of situations in the past? So are we setting precedents right now? Or,
Through the chair, I can answer that, attempt to answer that. So anytime someone is applying for a variance, it's to differ from what the zoning code allows and the general plan. So every variance request is a little bit different. We look at each request on its individual merit. So for example, in this situation, one of the reasons that the Community Development Department supported this type of a project with a recommendation of approval is because this individual is not able to continue to farm his property due to all of the smaller homes that are already around him. So to answer your question, I don't think it's precedent-setting unless someone had the exact same situation. You have had a few variances come before you that staff has not recommended approval for because this project, or the ask of just subdividing agricultural land through the variance process is something we take very seriously because it does not conform to our general plan policies or our zoning code. However, due to the issues I just mentioned, where it's difficult for him to farm, it's consistent with all the properties that completely surround him, that is the reason that we are able to support something like this. So I don't like to say it's precedent setting when we are recommending approval because it's really based on the specifics of and location of this exact property.
And that kind of segues into when I looked at the Sierra Club's argument for, are we in violation of state law? And I'm going, I need to have legal weigh in on this, because they're accusing this project that it's possibly that we're violating state law. It's illegal.
Right, no.
So I just want clarification on
Yeah,
that.
I understand. So legally, you can grant a variance. The allows it. Our development title, the statute allows it if you make certain findings, right? And those findings are set forth in attachment E of staff's report. But one of, I guess, the cornerstones of the variance law is that one has to establish a necessary hardship. And I think that's something that Ms. Jolly spoke to. If this, the applicant, this gentleman is not able to continue farming because of the surrounding adjacent uses or homes, and people are complaining or whatever, or like the size of the property, that can also be a factor, right? Like the characteristics of the land, but also you look at it in relation to what's going on around that property and adjacent uses. And so the law does permit a variance to be granted in certain situations. So I'm going to let staff speak to zoning and general plan consistency. I think Ms. Jolly or Ms. King can speak to those issues. You know, that having, subdividing this home for potentially for residences is not a use that is not permitted, right? Like, so we want to make those distinctions. And you guys can chime in on that point before I continue.
Sure.
Yeah, because the argument on Sierra Club is that the variance to reduce parcel sizes is what they're saying is illegal or against the law. And,
Through the
but,
chair, yeah, correct, that is correct. That is what they are saying. As council just explained, we do have the ability to vary the size of a parcel in planning and zoning law. You do not have the ability to vary a use. So for example, in the AG 40 zone, you are allowed to build a single-family residence, an accessory dwelling unit, and even a junior accessory dwelling unit. So by allowing this subdivision and granting this variance, we are not allowing anything that couldn't already be done in that zone. You are just basically requiring or permitting a smaller parcel than normally would be permitted. And a kind of important part of understanding variances is this gentleman is in a situation where he's got a piece of property completely surrounded by smaller parcels. These parcels were created over many, many decades for various reasons. Some of them date back probably into the early 1900s. They, you know, sometimes those types of antiquated subdivisions, and that's how you end up with really small parcels, a bunch of them out in the ag zone. That's one of the reasons we don't typically support variances, because we don't want to continue to subdivide agricultural land into smaller parcels. And while Mr. Estes is talking about the housing element and providing housing, we wouldn't typically rely, as Commissioner Sankhon mentioned, we wouldn't typically rely on 2-acre parcels as our ideal way to address our housing element, but it does not hurt the situation. Houses are allowed in the agricultural zone already. So it wouldn't be inconsistent with the housing element, but our housing element does try to look at the best way to increase the amount of housing in the county, which is a higher density. But this particular situation, looking at the parcels that completely surround his piece of property, he would be in good company with 2-acre parcels out there.
good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, so
Thank you.
exactly as Director Jolly said, you can't grant a variance to allow somebody to engage in an unauthorized use. But here, you know, dividing property potentially for residences, that's already a permitted use, so we're not in that area. And I think the Sierra Club letter, you know, made it sound that way, or the other point they brought up was, well, you have to have substantial evidence. And so staff in the report have made those findings and recited those facts that, you know, in their opinion, lend support for the recommendation to grant a variance. So legally, you can grant one because of special circumstances applicable to the property, including size, shape, topography, location, surroundings, anything that if you applied the strict application of the zoning ordinance, it would deprive that particular property of privileges enjoyed by other property in the vicinity. So that, in a nutshell, are the principles of variance law. I don't know if I muddied it more than I cleared it up for you, so
No, you
let me
did.
know if.
You
okay.
did. I
good
just wanted to
explanation,
know
yeah.
our rebuttal to the Sierra Club, and it was explained to me, and I get it now. But it was a question. I went, that's a good question. And you answered it, so thank you.
All right, I'll bring it back. I think someone was getting ready to make a motion.
I made the motion, but I cannot repeat it exactly how she said it. Can you repeat
yes,
it? And
so-
I will validate it.
So I believe the motion is to accept and adopt the findings for the variance and the major subdivision set forth in attachment E of staff's report with an amendment to the conditions of approval set forth in attachment F of staff's report. And that amendment to the condition, is to condition of approval 1A. And the particular amendment is a revision of the March 18th, 2024 date to May 2nd? I'm sorry,
22nd.
May 22nd? And the year,
2025.
okay.
I motion that.
Yeah, and if you think I'm going to repeat it, you got another thing coming. So, do we have a second?
I second that.
I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Yes.
Commissioner Rustaller,
Yes?
Commissioner Tuitavuki,
Yes.
and Commissioner Sangha.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. We'll move to the next item on the agenda.
Give my staff a second to switch seats. And I have,
Oh, sorry, I just want to clarify. So the motion is to adopt what's set forth in the staff report, so all of the recommendations, and that includes the recommendations set forth on page 5 of the staff report. So that includes accepting the recommendation on the mitigated
Right.
negative declaration, you know, all of those things that are
One
listed.
through, there's
Okay.
6 recommendations.
Okay, just want to
And it-
clarify.
You explained 2 of them that needed to be amended, but all 6. So everybody agrees to that? Or do we need to take another vote?
No, I
right.
think it was pretty,
Again,
we
So
understand.
the project can move forward. Good luck.
great. Okay, I have Megan Aguirre, Principal Planner, here to present the next item.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. As part of continually improving the development title that guides our department's processes, we have a workshop this evening to discuss special events. So prior to finalizing the development title update, staff from the Community Development Department met with a member of the Board of Supervisors and staff from other departments to discuss issues with special events and how these might be addressed in the development title. This was followed by discussions about special events with the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. Changes were then incorporated into the development title update approved at the end of 2022, with the understanding that additional changes might be required in the future. Now that a few years have passed, The Community Development Department is seeking input on updating the ordinance to better address issues with special events. There were 2 pre-workshop meetings held in April and May of this year with various county departments and divisions. Fire districts were also invited, with Thornton Fire Protection District attending one of the pre-workshop meetings. A number of topics were brought up during these meetings, some of which are process-related concerns to be addressed internally and outside of this workshop format. The remaining topics will be addressed tonight. So topics for our discussion tonight include permit requirements, permit exemptions, and unpermitted events. So although the memo that was provided kind of followed the development title chapter, this discussion will be organized a little bit differently, but kind of hit on the same topics that you saw, the same questions. So for permit requirements, all special events currently require the same level of permitting, which is a temporary use permit that must be reapplied for annually for each event. These permits are ministerial and do not require environmental review or public noticing to neighbors. In the past, the development title required a similar type application for special events as well. Because special events can vary in size and potential impacts to the surrounding area, our first topic of discussion is if there should be different levels of permitting required depending on how impactful an event may be. So, and if that answer is yes, we also would like to know what the Planning Commission thinks the threshold should be for that. For example, would this be based on the number of attendees or something else? So kind of that first topic is, do we think everything should have the same level of permitting for special events? And just in case not all of you are as familiar with our special events in the county, sometimes we get some pretty minor ones because the threshold is 75 people, but we can also have them in the thousands of people. So one of the ideas was maybe it's based on people, but it could also be something else. There could be a different threshold. So I don't know if there's any input on that?
My input would be based on the number of people attending,
Okay.
because obviously the larger the event, the more things that can happen or will need to be done to make sure things don't happen that shouldn't.
And I concur, especially if it's indoors, you know, because, well, being an ex-fire marshal, we want to make sure that we have the adequate fire exits and doesn't exceed the occupant load that was established by the building department. So,
I need to ask a question, if I may. Because I've been with the city of Lathrop for years, so I'm not really familiar with what would be a special event in the county level.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm hitting in this direction is because we talked about, you know, preservation of farming. At the same time, farmers have the ability to do other things more in the agribusiness, which would involve events. So what events are we talking here? Are we talking about wineries that may have, you know, weddings, or are we talking about, you know, a group of people that just want to do something maybe 2 or 3 times a year?
It can be all of the above. Wineries have some special event permissions that they can get. And so like if they're doing marketing events, sometimes that might encompass things someone else would do on a property with a special event, but not marketing, obviously, wine. So they kind of have their own category when you're talking about wineries. Now, if I just have a property in the ag zone and I want to do a wedding at my property, then I'm getting a special event permit for that. So it covers a lot. Like I said, one of the things that changed with the development title update was that we set the threshold for 75 people because we've had large family parties that have also created a nuisance. And so that was one of the feedback, you know, items that we got was we'd like to set a threshold for a number because even if it's a family party, we used to always say, family party, you're exempt, you don't need anything. But we've had some really large families that had parties that were, you know, a lot of noise, a lot of traffic, that sort of thing. So there are wineries that get special event permits as well if what they're doing isn't covered by the various accessory events and things that they're allowed to have. So that can apply to them, but they also have quite a lot more that they're allowed to do than the average agricultural property.
So they could, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from. When I retired, I started doing events for Deloso Family Farms, which is City of Lathrop. And when you talk about numbers, I mean, I could be working with a group that's going to do 25 or a group that's going to do 2,400. So that's why I needed to differentiate. Is this something like a winery? Because they wouldn't know if a wedding's going to be 300 or 75. But you're saying that what you're talking about is not necessarily that, but just a special event.
Yeah, so when a winery is going to rent out their property for a special, what would require a special event permit, I'm sure they have to find out kind of how many people are coming, but those would be things that don't fall under any of their allowed events. And some of the wineries also haven't come in for like a marketing plan or those sorts of things and asked for events. So if they do anything, it's going to require a special event permit. So it really depends on the specific site, as well as, what the winery ordinance allows. I would also like to add too that we do have an ag tourism section in our title now that we didn't used to. That does allow some things in a different process. Some things don't require anything. Some of them also, like this, would require a permit depending on the threshold if it's met. But there's another process for the ag tourism aspect too. So you kind of have multiple categories here as to what's covered by the special event permit or not even part of that.
I just, as I see that a lot of farmers are looking at other options versus subdividing or selling their properties, getting, they're going more and more. You see them all through the county where, they have a barn and now that's going to be a venue for weddings or so I don't know how we do the numbers.
Yeah.
Of course, maybe that's something you guys develop and then recommend.
Through the chair, I think I can maybe try to add a little clarification. So about almost a decade ago, we revised our winery ordinance because we had created a winery ordinance back in like 2000, 2001, and it very, very briefly, like maybe 3 sentences, addressed marketing events. Didn't really have a lot of guidance on what that meant, and nobody, I think, anticipated how the Lodi Appalachian area would explode. And, we used to have 20 wineries, and then now we have like 100 wineries. So in around, say, 2013, we started working with all the stakeholders in the county including neighbors of wineries, and then, Grape Growers Association and anyone in between there, on how to revise and codify what kind of events can be allowed out in the agricultural zone for wineries. So 2016 is when we adopted the current ordinance, and it's very specific. Wineries kind of have their own special chapter in this county, and they have a lot of parameters they have to operate within, and it's all predicated on their land use permit that gets approved for that site. So, for example, a marketing event, which includes like a wedding, they have to serve their wine. They also can serve beer at something like that, but they have to be serving their wine for a marketing event. And their land use permit will say how many people they can have to their marketing event. So usually it's like around, I think some of the biggest ones are around 300, something like that. So if a winery wanted to have a 1,000 person, huge blowout event, that would require a special event. That's above and beyond their land use permit, right? But every winery has their own land use permit and their own rules and their own parameters for how many people they can have and can they have music and things like that. So one of the reasons we're here today is because the events that typically we run into problems with are the really large ones. So it's become more and more common in this county for someone to have a large piece of property and to want to do, say, like a 3-day concert or something like that. And it's for profit. And it's sometimes it's even been people who don't own the property. They want to market this, we'll call it like a little mini Coachella type, festival. And the neighbors get frustrated with that because currently the ordinance does not require us to notify them. We do notify the police department, sheriff, CHP, et cetera, but the neighbors don't know about it. And so then when an event pops up over the weekend and they had no idea that there were going to be thousands of people there, that frustrates them, and that's understandable. So we are trying, as staff, we are trying to figure out where's that balance, where's the happy medium where we can regulate things like that, but not be overly bureaucratic and try to regulate just having, a family wedding or something at your house. So events are complicated. I just want to separate special event discussion tonight from wineries because our intent is not to touch the winery ordinance. And the majority of our winery operators know when they need a special event because they know what their land use permit allows them to do. And when they're doing above and beyond that, they come to us for a special event. They're also commercially established facilities. So that's a really different kind of environment than out in the middle of nowhere where everybody's farming and then all of a sudden you have this huge concert. So one of the things Megan had kind of put on this screen about administrative use permits, those are discretionary. Those require environmental review. They require notice to the public. They take a lot of time. So it's not really reasonable to require that every time someone wants to have a special event. And right now, special events can only happen 4 times a year. So if I was a farmer and I had a piece of property and I wanted to offer weddings in my, I'm not gonna say barn because barns aren't usually allowed. They don't have the occupancy for putting a bunch of people in for a party. But we'll just say they have something that's approved. And it's something outdoor, yeah. And they could apply right now for a special event permit up to 4 times per year. That seems to be a reasonable amount that we find for the public to accept because most people will have annoying neighbors a couple times a year, but they can deal with it. It's the every single week that is the problem. And so we do not recommend creating an ordinance, and it hasn't been supported by our policymakers either, to have what everybody kind of calls event centers, because they do create a lot of problems when they're every weekend and they're out in the agricultural zone and they're hurting the farmers and, bringing huge amounts of traffic out on small farm roads and things like that haven't been environmentally reviewed. So it's a tricky one for us. That's why we wanted some of your feedback. We're not really sure where we want to go with this. We've looked at a lot of different jurisdictions and they do it all across the board. We could require an administrative use permit and still only allow them to do it 4 times a year. And they could do that every year, 4 times a year, and they'd only come in for their administrative use permit. That's an option. That would have been environmentally reviewed. The public would be notified that this was going to happen, and they could do it 4 times a year. The higher level of review is the conditional use permit, which requires planning commission approval. That's going to take even longer for people and be even more expensive. And every time you get a higher level permit, the more the expense goes up too. So it's a really difficult thing for staff to balance. And so we were hoping to get some great feedback from your smart brains that might be thinking of something that we don't. But I can tell you all the issues we do deal with, and then maybe you guys have some thoughts on how to address it. But it's really the big events that we need to focus on. The smaller events are really not our problem. People come in, get a special event permit for a weekend.
Well, that's why I said I thought it should be based on a certain
Yeah, so
number.
do we, where's the threshold? Where do we, what's the cutoff?
What do you,
Oh, go ahead.
I would say 300 people.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. What is your definition of a big event?
The ones I'm thinking of are in the thousands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're in the
Okay.
thousands. I think
Okay.
we have a couple of events in the south part of the county that have gone on the last couple of years, and I think they're at like 3,000 to 4,000 people.
Wow.
Oh,
And
cool.
they're
Okay,
they're
that's-
just for limited weekends, but obviously there's an impact to the neighbors and they're not being notified in advance. So one other alternative we could do is instead of going to an administrative use permit, which again requires notice and environmental review, we could just add a level of notification to the public. So if it's over a certain size, we could notify the public within a whatever radius, 1,000-foot radius, to let them know it's going on. So it's not something that we are asking for the public's feedback on per se, but we would at least notify them. That we really could kind of go in every direction, any direction that we feel is going to address some of the concerns. And so Anyway, I've been rambling, so.
No, that's
it's-
good.
it's-
Yeah, I think
Jennifer,
that's
I had a
important.
question, if I may. So I'm speaking this from personal experience. I do have an event center. We can do up to 1,000 people there when it's just corporate events, but when it's a party, we do up to 500. We do have another outdoor place, Lakefront Resort, where we have the capacity of over 100 acres where we can do bigger events. So I understand what you're saying because the event center is commercially done and we have parking for 500 cars, so we can have 500 people. I don't need CUP because I am given the permit to have it as a banquet hall and an event center. But if I have to do something at the 100 acres, even though it is out in the wilderness, I will need a permit if it's more than 1,000 people. If that's, I'm just talking about personal experience, so I can bring a scenario which is quite real instead of just going with some weird number where we don't know what we're talking about. I agree. My other question, while I'm asking questions, is when you're talking about South County, without going into specifics, I know there has been a couple events, and there's one event that happens every year in Tracy, where it was about 10 to 15,000. It went up to 25,000, and last time we had over 30,000. We did get the permits. The sheriff was there. We do block the roads. We do ask for, but I don't understand that because we were going with conditional use permit for that. Will that fall under administrative use permit then? Because if that's what because that's a scenario, I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but, okay, then I just opened up my mouth too big.
Well, I don't know where you're talking about, so no harm, no foul. I have not heard of an event that large. I feel like we would have heard if there were problems with it.
No, there were no problems. That's what I'm saying. It was very well done. It's a religious event. It's done once a year in March every year. So 6, 7 years ago when it started, it was about 5,000 to 8,000 people. It was 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. Last year, it was in 2024. We didn't do it in 2020 and 2021 for whatever the reasons were given. But this past year, it went up to 30,000 people. But it was very well organized. We had letters sent to the neighbors, which is a farming area, of course. And the sheriff's department was there. We had our own security. We had 50 of our own security, plus we hired the sheriff's department. So will something of this affect something of that level, of course?
So I'm going to assume a couple of facts on this one because I don't know. If it's out in the agricultural zone,
Yes.
it would be subject to a special event permit today. It would need one.
Okay.
And it's over 75 people, so it would need one. But it would not currently, under the current zoning code, would not require environmental review, and it wouldn't require neighbor notification. Now, it sounds like you are getting ahead of it and notifying the public because.
We do it on our own.
Yes, so it sounds like you're doing something that's not required by the code, but that's what we're kind of leaning towards, creating some sort of an ordinance that guides us on when we should notify the neighbors about things like that. So, I mean, the changes we could make to the code could be as simple as if your event is over 300 people, you notify the public that this is going to go on during these hours. And maybe that's enough to help with the situation that we deal with. It's not uncommon for the sheriff to be hired for security, CHP to be hired for traffic control. So just because we're not notifying the public doesn't mean that we don't have requirements such as CHP traffic control or security, or the fire department may require.
Yeah, they have 2
certain things.
trucks on site, and
Yeah, so
we
I mean,
get billed for the CHP, we get billed for the sheriff's department. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
we do it, I do it, or we do it knowingly that this can become a problem, so I'm being proactive. So that's what my question is. If something of that sort will not look for environmental, because it's once a year, but it will definitely still look for the special permit, which most people don't get, but we do. I'm just saying that, but, so that'll be a requirement.
It could be if we change the code.
Okay,
Yes. I
perfect.
mean, anything right now over 75 people is supposed to require a special event permit, and you can do that up to 4 times per year.
Okay, makes sense.
And not to jump on Megan's whole presentation, but we do have an exception, and we're looking for other conversations about events at religious assemblies. Because I know like religious assemblies will have bazaars and festivals and things like that are above and beyond their standard, 5 masses on Sunday or
Yeah.
whatever. And so currently, we would allow you to have an accessory event at your church. You have your festival, your fall fest or whatever. We would allow you to just have that. because you're a religious assembly, it's related to the religious assembly. But that's one of our questions too, is some of those events get much larger than the religious assembly itself. Currently, we don't require them to get any permits, but do we want to? That's kind of one of the questions being posed tonight also, is, you've got a religious assembly that, I'm just gonna use Catholic, and they've got 5 masses, one on a Saturday, 5 on a Sunday or whatever, but then you have a festival over a weekend, so Saturday and Sunday, you've got so much parking, it's, in the field, down the streets, everywhere, it's much more than it is at a normal mass. Do we want to require them to have a land use permit? We don't currently, or a special event, we don't currently, but do we want to? That's kind of one of the questions we're raising tonight also.
Got it, thank you.
So the triggers for me would be, of course, the occupant load, traffic impact, right? If you're serving alcohol, correct? And then any bands or music, and then any special other things like pyrotechnics, right? So those things right there would trigger some kind of inspection by somebody. Whether it's a fire department, law enforcement, environmental health, so on and so forth. So those are the kind of things right off the bat of my head, right off the top of my head is what I'm thinking, okay, this is probably gonna trigger a special permit, events permit. I can't think of anything else.
So currently, our special event permits, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they come in through planning, but they are routed through for review and approval or comments or conditions or whatever. The building department, fire, environmental health, public works, they go to the sheriff office. If they are located near a highway, we send them to CHP. So all of those groups are notified, and they have to sign off for approving the special event. But that's kind of where we're like, would you like them to be able to review it more heavily and add conditions to it if it was a higher level permit, or just the informational and kind of review and approve or deny?
From the fire department end, if you're going to have an event, let's say during the summer, I would want a first aid there because people drop out, And I was with the Asparagus Festival, downtown, I was responsible providing first aid during those 3 days, and we were busy.
Yeah.
I mean, at certain times of the day, people would like, boop, they'd start falling out. We got busy. So that would trigger like, okay, we're gonna require you to hire EMS, Emergency Medical Service, or have first aid, or, whoever, contract with AMR. So those are the things that hopefully the fire permit or the fire department would kind of, oh yeah, we need to have that extra level of safety. And if you're cooking, then we would require fire extinguishers at your vending booths. I don't know if that occurs. I can speak from City of Stockton because I did it, but I don't know what happens in a county.
So they do go to all those departments, and they can add those requirements. We've had CHP, have the applicant get a contract with CHP for traffic control. But that's kind of up to each individual department or division on what they want to require.
Right.
So that's why we kind of send it to fire. It's either county fire, or maybe it goes to, whichever fire district, and then they can add their own requirements
Right.
before they'll approve it.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of it falls under the fire code too. They have their own special events permits within the fire code, so.
So maybe we can focus, sorry, Megan,
No, I'm
we
just-
did hijack your total presentation, I apologize. But just as we're talking, I'm starting to kind of try to focus on what issues we might want to hone in on as being a threshold. So as I mentioned, notifying the neighbors is like a big part of it, but you don't want to notify them when you're having 76 people to your house. Like, that's not going to,
Well,
but
if I may, because I was going to, 75 people can be impacting in one spot. 7,500 could not be impacting in another spot. So is there a possibility of linking sizes? I mean, that would probably make it more complicated for you guys, and that's definitely not what I want to do. But like, for example, if you're going to have 75 people and you are in the agricultural, but you happen to be in a situation like what we were talking earlier, where these are 2-acre parcels, so you are going to impact your neighbors, versus in the middle of nowhere, then you can raise it to 300, 500, or whatever. I don't know if that's a possibility.
We actually, so part of, maybe we should have done a better job of explaining what we ask for a special event. So when someone comes in, we have that threshold of 75 people, and then you have to look at the zoning too to make sure the zoning, because not every zone allows you to do the special.
Even if they allow it, sometimes they might not allow both indoor and outdoor or something.
Okay, yeah, so we do have to use our code to see where the property is and can you even do it. But when they apply, they have to bring us a site plan. They show us what buildings they're using. They show us where they're parking. I think we do allow them to show off-site parking, not if they have an agreement with like an adjacent property owner or something like that. We try to work with people because this isn't happening as a business every weekend.
Yeah.
This is kind of a special occasion or a special event. So what I'm hearing though is some of the things that really might trigger maybe the need for us to notify the public is if you're doing outdoor music, then we need to let your neighbors know. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have 76 people, it doesn't matter if you have 5,000 people, we should probably maybe consider letting surrounding property owners know that that's happening. Alcohol, I don't know if that's a threshold where if you're serving alcohol, we should let your neighbors know. I just, these are the things I'm not sure because I don't want to be overly bureaucratic with this type of thing, but sometimes alcohol can cause problems with traffic, and so neighbors may want to be aware that that's going on tonight, so we're going to keep our kids in tonight because we don't want to risk it. I think I'm kind of working through this and on my own coming to the conclusion that I think notifying the public is probably one of our biggest, help for the public. Like that would help so much. And as Chair Roostaller said, like maybe over a certain amount of number of people, you have to do a higher level of permit. I don't know if it's 300, but it's, maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's, but then as Commissioner Rhodes pointed out, 1,000 people on one property is fine, 1,000 people on another. So this is our conundrum, and this is why we're here
Wow,
tonight,
yeah,
because
no.
it's a hard,
And we don't want to make it more complicated for you.
it's a hard, it's hard to wrap your head around it, because it really can be like any type of situation on any kind of property. And we do review, like I said, we review parking, we send it to the fire department, we do all of that, but we still get the complaints. And a lot of times, I think the complaints are because they didn't know about it, or they think this is now something that's going to happen every weekend. Because some people do open without permits an event center until they're told by code enforcement and educated that that's not allowed. So it can look like a commercial operation popping up in the ag zone if they're booked every weekend. But the 4 a year is I think, everyone probably kind of agrees that that's reasonable to do
Yeah,
something on your
I
property
agree
4
that-
times a year.
I actually do also agree that we should notify the public. The question is, at what number do you notify the public?
Yes, that is
And-
the question.
But to your point, yeah, if if the gentleman is here tonight, then we'd notify it if it was 25 people going as opposed to 2,500 when you've got 40 acres out in the boonies. So,
Well, what we can do is, we don't have to make a decision tonight on this. We just wanted to kind of
can I-
let you know the challenges that we deal with, see
could
what
you
your
guys
thoughts are.
go back, sort of come up with a few different scenarios on how you think the public should be notified? How many numbers, at what number? And I do think alcohol, as you say, if alcohol's being served,
We should maybe
certain
notify.
inhibitions go away as the party moves on through the night. And so that should be part of this permitting process.
Okay, I think that, I think that we can maybe bring back like some draft language, not for even approval, but we can try to take some of the comments that have been made tonight, put it into, make some sense of it, and make some recommendations to discuss.
Yeah.
Also, Chair, if I may, like Commissioner Rhodes was saying, depending on where the event is.
Yeah.
If it's in a residential area and 75 people can create a chaos. For that, it depends on the zoning. If you're out in the wilderness and there's a Coachella thing going on, who cares? I mean, yeah, we do care, but it's like they don't need to, there is no neighbors to begin with.
Yeah.
But if it's in a residential area, then definitely, even if you're just playing some loud music after 11 o'clock and somebody else has to go to work tomorrow morning, they have the right to go to sleep on time, and then those kind of things do make a difference if they can be told beforehand. So I think the zoning will make a big difference. If you are in a commercial zone, you're in a residential or a retail zone, or if you're out in the agriculture where there is no homes in at least 1 mile radius, then it's a different story.
Yeah, I like that.
Because Deloso Farms does a lot of stuff. They're very well regulated. But then again, people who have event centers in commercial areas, we are very well regulated. But then there's some people who can just pop up a backyard tent and they're blasting music and it's shaking up the windows from other households, neighboring homes. So that's a different story. So I think residential and commercial will make a big difference when it comes to zoning.
I agree.
That's something that I would like to please include there in the.
Okay. I think you've got a roadmap there to go down. All right, so, yes.
Did you want to continue talking about any of the other topics, or I just have a few other things, so that's the only reason I ask.
Okay. Can you do it
And-
quickly?
Yeah, we kind of touched on some of them, so I was putting up the slides as you guys were talking
Yeah, I
about
saw
them.
you, yeah.
But the first one is just, and I believe Commissioner Tuituviki, I'm not sure if I said that right, I'm sorry, hit on some of these. We have required plans for special events, but it's kind of at our discretion. And one of the questions is, do you want all of these plans for all special events, or do you want us to kind of think about those same thresholds? So like event staffing, amplified sound, sanitation facilities, emergency first aid, cleanup after the event, traffic control. Does every project need all of those? We also don't have like set forms for these, so it's not like we have a special format they need to follow for each of those plans. It can be a simple written, directions on what they're doing. But do we want it at all thresholds? Do we want it only for those higher level ones, wherever that threshold is put? And then, so just any input on that.
So you're requiring all those for
It says,
plans?
if applicable, so
Okay.
we kind of have it flexible, but it's like, it's up to staff's discretion, right? So
Okay.
do you want it to stay that way? Do you want it to
I-
change?
To me, again, it would be on the size of
Okay.
the function.
Okay. So we can maybe tie it to the other discussion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then I have here too, we do have some, it says exemptions, that's wrong, I'm sorry. A couple of other questions just tied to that. How should noise levels be measured for compliance? That came up with the sheriff's department because we require currently that you put a decibel reader up so that it kind of puts you on notice for your own event. That decibel reader is going out of control. It doesn't really stop anything and it's in one set place. The sheriff's office has indicated they kind of use like their body cams and how far they are from, at the property line, that sort of thing. I don't know if we need to get more specific on how we do it, if you guys have any thoughts, because noise is one of our biggest complaints, and we can require that amplified sound study or plan, but, it always is one of the complaints we're gonna get. So I don't know if you have any additional feedback or anything you think we should do differently, but that's
Can I
kind of where
ask
we're
a
at right now.
question? Is that something they have to purchase? How do you get that amplified?
Yes, and we did look it up at the time we did the development title update to see, like, is this exorbitant, what we're asking for? And apparently you can buy them fairly inexpensively on Amazon.
Okay.
So I think somebody said like $20 on Amazon to
But
put up
are they
Okay.
required to take decibel readings the whole night?
Well, they would leave it up in an obvious spot. So also, if the neighbor pops by and they see the decibel reader is at 110, I'm not saying it would be. That's probably very excessive. But it kind of puts you on notice, right? Whereas it's like it's 65. That's in more of a reasonable range, right? It's kind of just more. I think a deterrent. Really, it's not going to stop anything necessarily. Sheriff's still going to get called if it's too loud. But they were saying it's hard to enforce noise, and I understand that. I don't know if you guys have any other input on it, but that's kind of what we added last time was the decibel reader. That was kind of our step towards trying to help
But
with
they
it.
still have to turn everything off by 10 o'clock, right?
They do. So that's actually another question here because a couple other things I added here. Parking calculations. We don't have an exact thing for that, counting attendees. That's some of that. But prompt cleanup, we say they have to promptly clean up, but if your event ends at 10, does that mean they have to start cleaning up immediately? No. I believe it was actually yourself, but somebody mentioned at a previous planning commission when we talked about it, that we should allow them to clean up after as long as they're not being noisy. But do they have to? Is prompt cleanup tomorrow? You know, like, do we care if it's real specific in the title about when that is? Or, I mean, as long as they're not creating more of a nuisance, right? Like being up till midnight cleaning loudly or something.
I mean, you don't have anything that states must be cleaned up within 24 hours?
We don't, but do we want to, or do we want to kind of leave it up to them? And I mean, because if we leave it up to them, is a week prompt?
No,
like,
I don't think so. I think it should be within 24 hours.
Okay.
myself,
I like
but-
that, yeah. 24 hours.
Question. I have a question. What are other counties doing? Like
So-
Stan County, I mean, we're not the only ones that have these issues. So, not being lazy, but I'd rather not reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
If there's a document out there going, hey, that looks pretty good. You know what I mean? Have we kind of reached
not
out?
yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Maybe that's a
That is a step.
suggestion.
Yeah,
That's a
perfect.
suggestion from me. Yeah.
Yeah, then we
That
can do
way,
that.
you know, there, you guys can go through it and go, ah, that makes sense, or, yeah, we need to expand on that.
Definitely.
Okay.
Megan, quick question. Do you guys work with some kind of decimal figure right now? That if it goes above that, then it's creating trouble?
We do. There's a section in the development title already just for noise in general because there's already thresholds at which people are subject to, you know, the noise can't be beyond a certain decibel at a certain hour. So there are thresholds. It's just implementing it for special events is really tricky because a lot of them do have music and they get loud. And I mean, our noise section even applies to things that aren't related to events at all. And it does have like, that's why I mentioned 65 because that's one of the numbers in there.
Right, so does the decimal number change? Because later in the night, you know, the sound travels further away because there's not other noises around you. So
Yes.
are we staying at one standard? Because what's noisy at 8 o'clock is different than what's noisy at 11 at night.
Yeah, so we do have separate standards between 7 to 10 p.m., 7 a.m., 10 p.m., and then 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Got it.
So there is that time limit. And then we also have indoor versus outdoor, like how loud things should be. So kind of goes back to if we did a discretionary permit for something, how we look at noise would be different than if we're doing a temporary use permit to some extent. Because if we had a noise study for that, there's CEQA requirements.
Yeah, that's
for,
what I was going to
like,
say, because
that
there was
related
an
to noise.
there was an instance when a bureaucrat came and he says, you know, you have to do a CEQA. I'm all like, for having a concert, I never heard about doing a CEQA, because CEQA stands for environmental report. I mean, what are you talking about? And so there has to be common sense measures. I understand, you know, there should be both looking at people's private choices, but also respecting other people's choices and, you know, their comfort level. So I think it's something that we need to have more discussion on, because there is a lot of things that could be definitely, like Commissioner Rhodes said, you know, different areas, different times, and different locations with the zoning mix. One size fits all won't work here.
Yeah.
Well, and with noise, I mean, I got to tell you, that was the number one complaint I got on the phone in the middle of the night when I was mayor. And one particular one still strikes me, which was, I live right next, almost right next to the park where the noise was coming from. I couldn't hear it, but they were a mile away and it was driving them crazy. So having a figure
Yeah.
that the police can tell them, you know, they are within, and if you have an issue with that, you can then, you know, maybe go back to city council and have it reduced or whatever. But that's a big one. I feel for you.
Yeah. Noise is hard. Can we do anything else? Are we okay to keep talking a little bit? I don't want to.
Oh, I was going to
elongate it
bring
too.
something up. I actually went to an event not too long ago where there was sufficient parking normally, but they had food trucks. And the food trucks took all of the good parkings and they sent everybody else to the fields. So when you're looking at parking, because I'm looking at parking calculations,
Yeah.
maybe that would be something to, if they're having, like they're bringing, you know, one event they had, you know, the pony rides and the food trucks, everything took all of the parking. So it was in the streets, impacting the citizens and so forth. So that was just something that I noticed. I left because I didn't want to walk a mile to get to the event.
Yeah. So parking calculations, since you brought that up, that is a good point. If they're taking up some of the existing parking, that would alter what we need them to provide in addition to it. We don't have anything real specific on parking calculations, but in the past, we've used like the community assembly parking requirement, basically 1 for every 3.
Yeah, I read that in the 1 for
Yeah.
every 3, yeah.
Yeah, so if you think that's good, we could consider putting that in the draft that we give you. One of the things that's kind of tied to that, and it goes back to the numbers, everything's about the numbers, is we don't actually require them to count attendees right now on site, but that could be something we do if you thought that that was important. So that they actually track how many people are attending. You say you have 150 and you have 300 or something. It was something brought up by the Thornton Fire Protection District, discussion on counting actual numbers because occupancy can be an issue. So that was one other kind of, and then that'd be tied to parking, right? If you don't have enough parking, if you have double the number of people and you're allowing all those people in. So I don't know if that's something we should consider or not, but that was something that was brought up.
Well, I guess it's something you can consider, and when you
Put it
talk
in.
to the other counties, ask them how they deal with it as well.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to be the one that throws, but it depends too, because if you have, let's say it's a concert in the middle of nowhere, you have multiple openings, maybe it's a big, a plot of land and there's parking all around and it's impossible to count people. And then it should be the responsibility of, so maybe putting something in there, it is the responsibility of whoever is throwing this big party to monitor their crowds. So if they think they've gone above, they need to do something about it. They need to stop it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I mean, it's different if it's one entry and it's, 150 are showing up all at the same time.
Right.
What about people leaving, people coming in? Your numbers change constantly.
Yeah. And I think that is the reason they brought it up, because Thornton Fire Protection District has the, a large venue there that has large events. And so I think that was one of the issues. You get overcrowding.
Right.
Do you mind if I touch on a couple other things? Is it okay?
Sure.
I'll try to make it quick.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
So we touched on this a little bit ago, so I just want to mention it again. We have a number of things that are exempt from special event permits, not including wineries and that sort of thing. Most of them, it's pretty clear. The one that we struggle with, which you already talked about, so I don't know if we need to talk about it more, but I'll just mention, is religious activities at approved religious assemblies. So I kind of think that might have been where Commissioner Songo was going, is that some of those sites have events, and there have been times when that's been included in their approved project. So we know they're having 4 large events a year already, but they don't always tell us. So we don't know if we should be more clear on what gets included and what doesn't for religious assemblies, or if we just kind of leave it alone. So that's something to be considered and maybe mull over for the next conversation.
I say you leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
almost every religious project that since I've been on this commission, they spell out how many special events they're gonna have already.
Perfect. Okay, and then the last topic really is unpermitted events. So again, this is kind of a sheriff's office thing they brought up. Penalties. When you hold unpermitted events, how do we penalize someone to bring them into compliance in the future? And so what we currently say in the title is that holding an unpermitted event may preclude the property owner from applying for future temporary use permits for the same year in which the unpermitted event or events occur. So if you're at the end of the year when you get caught, might not really impact you much. If you're at the beginning of the year, might have a larger impact. But I guess one of the issues is that even effective? Does that actually promote them to continue being out of compliance because they'd rather just keep getting in trouble? Should there be a different penalty, or even just should it differ based on whether they're a first-time offender or a repeat offender? Because we have had those repeat offenders that make their neighbors crazy. So any input on what we could do differently maybe for that?
I know in the city of Stockton, if you have a permit that wasn't approved, we double the fine. So whatever the permit was, like say $100, okay, now it's $200 for the first offense. And then it graduates up to, I forget what it was, but yeah, I mean, you hit them in the pocketbook
Yeah.
and they kind of pay attention.
That's
Is what the
I agree.
is,
That's the best way.
I know it's not fun, but that's the way
They'll
it
get,
is.
they'll understand if you start raising the
Yeah,
fine.
so you just kind of, okay, second,
But
third offense.
I also think you mentioned it, so it's in a year and, okay, so I have another one that I wasn't supposed to have. Well, then maybe there should be a penalty for the next year.
Yeah. And I will say that with code enforcement, we have ramped up like what we do when people get in trouble. That we've been working hard to really try to bring people into compliance. So I don't know if you had anything else, there's anything else to say on that. But I think that's all we wanted on that topic. So I think that's it. Unless anyone else had any questions or comments, we'll bring something back to you when we.
Anybody?
I'm good.
No, thank you. That was
Thank you.
very informative.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you about an event I'm going to have, no, never mind.
Please don't, please don't.
All right. Commissioner comments, anybody? No, I think we talked enough. Yeah. All right. All right, so there'd be director's report.
I'll keep it short. The only thing I wanted to bring to your attention, I don't know if any of you saw it, but last week it did come out, there was a press release about Stanislaus State is looking at creating a South County, I keep saying
In
South County, I
Tracy,
look at
yes.
it. So, yeah, looking at exploring bringing a Stanislaus State campus to the southern part of the county as part of a larger project that we've been reviewing for the last couple of years, which is a large-scale industrial and commercial facility. So that will probably be coming before you in the next 6 months to a year. It's been in the works for a long time, but that was kind of an exciting announcement for the county to have a college like that look at putting in a new facility. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, and before I adjourn, I'll just say, tomorrow night at the Hagen Museum is the 175th anniversary party for San Joaquin County. So if you don't have tickets, you can't go. But I just thought I'd say. Yeah, special event. I hope they permitted properly.
They would,
All right.
believe me.
All right. This meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.